Sometimes, in order to be reborn, made new, made better, you must first die. Die inside, die to yourself, and let your new self rise from the ashes. And dying hurts. But afterward, you become a phoenix. Are you going through hell right now? Embrace the fire. Allow yourself to be forged in fire. Come out stronger. Don't be defeated or become a victim to your circumstance. Learn from it. Don't let it corrupt you. Instead, let it strengthen you. Grow from it. Become wiser. Seek new opportunity. Truth. Change your perspective to see a glass half full instead of half empty. Notice the good that can come from the bad. Choose to be the good in the midst of the bad. Conquer. Seize the day. Maybe the difficult situation that you're in is the build up to the climax. See, suffering sometimes isn't always a bad thing. If we look at some of our favorite heroes, think about how they are formed, or rather, should I say, transformed. Because the hero is just a normal being with flaws in a really bad situation that is transformed through that difficult circumstance and by their adventure. And they come out different, better. And honestly, we kind of have to look at our lives the same way. Life is an adventure. And guess what? Adventures are fun. But if you've ever been on an adventure, or if you're a homebody and the biggest adventure you've ever been on is Lord of the Rings, that's cool. But you'll find out soon. Even though it's fun, and in the end, very, very rewarding and satisfying, if it ends happy, the journey is long, sometimes scary, sometimes confusing, surprising, difficult. Yet, all of these things shape us into what we're meant to be, or what we allow it to shape us into. So, don't let it corrupt you. Instead, let it build you up. Mountains are hard to climb, but you get stronger the higher you get. And you'll never get to enjoy the beautiful view at the top if you give up in the middle. At the same time, you can't stay focused forever 24/7 on just the mountain peak, because then you will have not experienced the journey, and there's so much that you could be missing out on. You see, suffering and joy go hand in hand, funny enough, but they do. And there's a balance that you have to find, that you have to accept in your heart in order to experience the benefits You see, it's natural. Human nature, instincts, whatever you want to call it, it's natural for us to want comfort and safety. So it's natural too that we stay in our comfort zone, that we try to eliminate hardship. But it's in those moments of pressure and outside the comfort zone that we're actually able to grow. And something we have to keep in mind through it all is that anything worth value, it takes working and it takes fighting for. Good things that last, they don't come easily or quickly as we wish they would. And that's why it's important to have certain characteristics in your heart, like patience and joy. And we can't always lean on our own understanding. We can't trust in the little that we know because we have to accept the fact that in the grand scheme of things, we really do only know so little. There's a bigger picture and we don't always see the grand design. I think about, I love the movie Endgame, Marvel Endgame, and they have to go back in time to defeat Thanos. And we think about like Black Widow who sacrificed herself, believing that it will all turn out right in the end. Sometimes we don't know. I mean, we don't know what the future holds, but it's the hope that we have to hold on to in order to embrace those sacrifices, those suffering, and be able to look past what we can see in the present while still being present, enjoying the present moment. But at the very same time, looking onward, fixing our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal, as stated in 2 Corinthians in the Bible. And some people like the Hakuna Matata kind of lifestyle where you are able to have some kind of peace within, even when everything on the outside, outwardly, is a storm, which is amazing. And that's also really important. But we have to ask ourselves, how do you get that kind of peace? And I read this awesome book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. And he talks about surrendering. And basically, when we're in difficult situations, I mean, honestly, in any situation, we cannot control everything. Sometimes we can control very little, but every single time we can control ourselves. And that's what we have to do. We have to have self-control. And he talks about 3 options: either accepting, changing, or retreat. So, if you're in a situation that you can change, you have to choose to make that change or be that change. Or are you going to retreat? Can you retreat? And if you can't, are you going to change it? And if you can't change it, at some point you have to accept. No, don't get confused. Every situation is different. And in certain situations, I don't want to say that you have to accept it and become a victim of something or have let something have claim over you, like a sickness, for example. No. In that moment, fight or flight, I'd choose fight, right? Because I believe, you know, anything can change, and we should always be willing to fight for what's good and what's better, and healing can happen. But back to the subject, I think that's a really true philosophy there, that we have to surrender in a way that is, sometimes life is going to happen to us, but are we going to allow it to overcome us, or are we going to overcome it and the obstacles? Life isn't meant to be perfect. Nobody said it was going to be easy. Guys, y'all have heard that before. Probably it's been oversaid. But it's true. It's true. Is it true to you, though? Have you accepted that? We are problem solvers. We want to solve problems. We want to overcome challenges. And by all means, yes. Yes. If you can solve problems, if you can solve your own problems, if you solve other people's problems, yeah, that's awesome. But at the same time, I think where we're at right now is expecting perfection, whether it be in us or in life. We're expecting total peace, total perfection. Maybe if I had enough money, I could fix all my problems. Maybe if I worked more, or if I didn't work as much, I could do more around the house, or do more for myself or my kids, or maybe I could achieve that goal. And when I achieve that goal, life will just be perfect, cream of the crop, everything, right? Sometimes we get caught up in this idea that life can be perfect forever. And the sad thing is that it can't. It's actually, I don't want to say the sad thing about it, because it's actually not sad when you start to understand that this life is supposed to be imperfect, because the world is imperfect, and we are not perfect beings, but that's okay. That's okay. What we need to do is focus on preparing for the next life, our life after this, not this forever. Because again, at the end of the day, we are all going to die. So what are we doing with ourselves today? If you died tomorrow, what would you feel about how you're living today? Are you going to look back and, look at yourself being constantly negative, not having enjoyed anything because life was difficult? Because let me tell you something. We always look at other people, and other people's lives seem perfectly together, especially if they have, if they're in a certain situation that may seem like the way our society deems success, right? Where maybe they're rich, maybe they're uber healthy, or maybe they're like, it seems like everybody loves them and they're so smart and just everybody else seems perfect. Perfectly together, perfect life. But nobody in this world has an easy, perfect life. And if they do, I'm really questioning who they are as a person, morally and other things. Because, again, this life isn't meant to be perfect. Are we looking back at ourselves, seeing ourselves constantly negative, constantly complaining? Are we making the most of what we have? Because that's a strong person. And I want to talk about Stoicism. And if you want to learn more about that, if you want to learn more about Stoicism, you can look up Marcus Aurelius, and I encourage you to. Some people have different opinions on Stoicism, but what I want to bring out of this one is that you can complain silently, meaning you may have legit concerns, maybe, and you have real pain, and none of that is devalued at all. But complaining has never helped anybody through hardship. In fact, it makes it harder to go through the situation. Just keep that in mind. So don't just focus on this life. Yes, problem solve. Do your best to make life great. Don't just give up because life can't be perfect. Like, we strive to be better, and we can always be better. There's always room to improve. That is what we should be doing, is striving to be better. But this idea of being perfect and perfectionism, this idea that life is just somehow magically happily ever after, end of story, until you die, that's not how it goes. And so, to the fact that I want you to sometimes, depending on what it is, look at your situation in a good light, because honestly, we can make good of our bad situations. Something I learned when trying to understand how to make my relationship with my husband better was that actually disagreeing is healthy sometimes. Is arguing constantly, accusing each other, being negative, all that, no, that's not good, right? But if you disagree with, if you're constantly agreeing with the other person, I mean, if y'all are like, identical twins like that, go y'all, soulmates, right? I guess. I'm not going to judge you, but at the same time, this idea that, like, oh no, I disagreed with my boyfriend or my husband, like, guys, that's okay. You are another person. And honestly, you might have something to present to the table that they didn't think of, and you're challenging their ideas, not degrading it, just challenging it, just, seeing it from a different perspective. And honestly, if you have an emotionally healthy spouse, they'll probably recognize that. So, I mean, the same thing with any situation is that we have to see the good that can come out of the bad too. And honestly, the same thing goes with our emotions. Like, emotions are healthy and natural and should not be shamed, should not be shut down. There's a weird thing going on in society, at least that I am seeing, and it's not a balance. in healthy emotional intelligence. It's either way on the spectrum of, I should be recognized for every emotion I have, and if you hurt my feelings, that's the end of the world, and you're, all these name calling that's going on because somebody hurt your feelings, and we're suddenly in kindergarten again, and somebody should pay for that. Or it's the opposite, and, nobody's ever told you that they love you, so you have no idea how to regulate your emotions, so therefore you shut them down. Or, people are constantly, maybe it's your family, shaming you, and then all of a sudden you start shaming yourself for having emotions, and therefore you bottle your emotions up or don't recognize them or hate yourself for having them, and then you don't, and then all of a sudden you explode. I'm talking like I've experienced it because, yes, I've experienced that. So therefore, both of those things are not healthy. And I'm bringing up the emotional side of this because when we are most emotional is when either we are at rock bottom or in cloud nine. And suffering can really bring out who you really are. And that's where we have to be careful and examine ourselves and work on ourselves. And listen to this one, be graceful with ourselves. Because, guys, again, we're not perfect. So why do we expect ourselves to be? Something that I was told was that, do you talk to your friend the way you talk to yourself? Why would you talk to yourself in a negative tone if your friend was going through the same thing and you wouldn't talk to them that way? Why do we show ourselves so much disrespect? One of the movies that I really like is Inside Out, and I love that movie so much. And it really shows how all of our emotions are very good. And I really love the movie because personally, I did deal with a lot of sadness growing up, and I love how the movie, at least in my perspective, really showed that even something like sadness, where we can easily shame ourselves for um, feeling that way, can actually be good in some circumstances. So I think that we have to step back and accept our emotions. Where it goes wrong is when we let those emotions get out of control, where sadness turns into depression and pity for ourselves, and anger turns into wrath and hate and hurting other people. And, joy becomes mania, and we spend all our money in one day on something that was a little bit not necessary. That's where we have to get our emotions under control. Just like the circumstances in life, we can't let them control us. We have to control ourselves. We can't let our emotions control us. We have to control our emotions too. And life is full of ups and downs. That's just how it is. So again, accept that. Accept it. Embrace it. Lean into the fire. Lean into the pain. Lean into the unknown. And going back to joy in the midst of suffering, you see, I spent years trying to understand what happiness was. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think I'm the only one out there spending their time trying to understand why they can't be happy in life. I don't think we're looking at it with the correct lens, because happiness is an emotion, and are there going to be sad moments in life? Yes, there will be. Can we have joy in the midst of a bad circumstance? Can we have joy and strength in the midst of suffering? Can we have hope and light in the midst of darkness? Yes, to all of those. We can. But just because you're not happy one day, because I don't know, your cat died or something, well, yeah, you're not happy at that moment. If you're happy all the time, just like if you're sad all the time, that's unhealthy. There has to be a balance in everything. But in that same regard, how can we have joy in the midst of suffering? And it goes back to being able to see the goodness that there still is. Thankfulness has a lot to do with that. And thankfulness is the cure to being negative and complaining. And seeing the good that can come out of it. So, also at the same time, looking ahead and remembering the reward that can come out of this, and remembering the better person you will come out of this as. Also, I like to throw this testimony out there because I think that it's pretty eye-opening, at least it was for me. But I was listening to this speech by Matthew McConaughey, and he was talking about how he was so focused on the success of his movies, getting the awards, all that he was not, he started to not enjoy the work he was doing if he didn't achieve the awards, if it didn't turn out right or good or popular or successful. He was basing his happiness on all those things. Guys, if you have something that you're basing your happiness on, that is probably going to be a bad idea, because again, life isn't perfect. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is promised. And the things of this world are fleeting. So he then started to just enjoy his work because he was passionate about acting. And when he started to enjoy his work, it didn't matter if he got those awards because he enjoyed the experience. And so that's what we have to remember. Don't constantly be looking forward, that you don't even see what's in front of you, because good things do happen in life just as much as bad. And you should be happy in those moments and enjoy them. Don't let sorrow steal your joy. Don't think, I can't be happy because tomorrow something's going to throw a fork in the road. You know what? That's called life. That's called life. Welcome to being alive. Now, live, and don't, at the same time, though, we don't want to just be so focused on the mud that we're stuck in that we can't see the horizon, the beautiful horizon ahead of us that we're walking toward. And once we get out of this mud, we will be able to enjoy that promised land. Even, especially, most importantly, the promised land that is the life after this. So, therefore, remember that you are one person in this entire amazing universe. And if you've done any kind of studying science or anything like that, you will know that things are formed with pressure and hardship. Things are made beautiful through pressure and hardship. Things grow, and sometimes things wither and die and then come back even more healthier after something like a storm or drought or whatever. If you read, there's a book that my friend told me about, and it talks about this. The book is called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but apologies if I'm not pronouncing the name right. But I just want you to get the book. I want you to know which book I'm talking about, because this book talks about how humans aren't as fragile as we want to think we are sometimes. And I like the word fragile, that the way that he used fragile and anti-fragile, because that's the thing. We need to think about ourselves as strong. We don't need to give in to pain as a weakness, but yield to it. We're not fragile, guys. Don't think yourself fragile. You are strong. You can take on more than you really know you can until you do, until you experience, until you go through it and come out, not only come out, but come out stronger than before. We're not fragile creatures. We're made to endure. We're made to grow through hardship. We're made this way, guys. So change your perspective. Realize that you are not fragile. You are strong. When you weld metal, it melts in the fire to be forged into something new. But it's not completely destroyed. And that's how we have to think about ourselves. We're not completely destroyed. We may be changed. Our elements may be changed. But then they become something new, something better, something strong, something of more value than before. We're not destroyed. We're transformed. So, again, just remember, it doesn't always seem naturally easy, but really, there is no better than the other. Good is not better than a good situation is not always better than bad. Bad's not always better than good. It's a balance, and we have to accept that life is going to be hard. So be a diamond. let yourself shine from the pressure. And again, be a phoenix, rise from the ashes, and be forged in fire.